Welcome to Movie Recap Center. Today's recap takes us to a gripping crime drama thriller set on a beautiful island. The movie begins with a vibrant montage of the island's scenery while smooth jazz music fills the air. Playing this music is a young, attractive singer named Nora, a girl from Chicago, who is performing at an upscale venue before the watchful eyes of Manuel Alvarez, the wealthiest and most influential businessman on the island. Deeply impressed with her voice, Manuel offers Nora an enticing proposal to become the exclusive performer at his club with a salary 3 times higher than what she earns back in Chicago. Flattered and tempted by the offer, Nora takes a moment to reflect on the opportunity. But before she can respond, Akeem, a bartender who has only been working at the club for 2 months, accidentally spills a glass of wine on her. He immediately apologizes. However, Manuel coldly demonstrates his ruthless nature. Without hesitation, he slits Akeem's throat in front of everyone, using the act as a brutal warning of his zero-tolerance policy toward mistakes. Horrified, Nora realizes she has no choice but to agree to Manuel's offer. Fully aware of the danger she's now tied to, the film then shifts to Los Angeles, where police officer Mark Etheridge and his talkative partner Phil are working undercover. After successfully busting a group of drug dealers, Mark cracks a light-hearted joke about his partner, but the mood changes when he receives a phone call from his hometown. The devastating news is about his younger brother. Akeem has been killed. Mark is heartbroken, drowning in sorrow as the memories of his close bond with Akeem resurface. It's revealed that the two grew up together on the island after their parents migrated there. They were inseparable until tragedy struck. Mark's unborn daughter died, which destroyed his marriage to his ex-wife Akila and drove him to leave the island 7 years earlier. Now, he is forced to return, this time for his brother's funeral. Arriving back home, Mark attends the funeral and then shares a heart-to-heart moment with his grieving mother, Yvonne. As they reminisce about Akeem, Mark asks what really happened. Yvonne insists that Akeem had been doing well and staying out of trouble, but also admits that the island has changed since Mark left. Surprised, since he remembers the island as peaceful, Mark presses her further. Yvonne explains that crime has risen sharply and begs her son not to take matters into his own hands. Mark gently comforts her, but secretly vows to uncover the truth behind Akeem's death. Mark's next stop is the police station, where he meets his childhood friend, now the island's police chief, Nate Wayland. Mark asks if there are any leads in the investigation, but Nate only admits vague suspicions that local gangs may be involved. He explains that gangs from nearby islands have flooded in, bringing drugs and violence with them. With limited resources, Nate's force is overwhelmed and can't operate like the well-equipped LAPD. Though frustrated, Mark agrees to be patient, but his determination is clear. Later that day, Mark visits Akila, his ex-wife, who now runs a dojo for local children. Their reunion is bittersweet as they reflect on their past, but Akila soon updates him on the island's grim situation. Crime is rampant, fueled by drug gangs, and Manuel Alvarez practically controls the entire island economy, from banks to hotels to construction companies. Akila warns that Manuel is untouchable, as most locals are too afraid to testify against him. She also believes Manuel is secretly connected to the gangs since they never attack his businesses. Before Mark leaves, she reveals one last heartbreaking detail. Akeem had been working at Manuel's club for the past 2 months. Determined, Mark confronts Manuel directly at the club. The two men engage in a tense verbal showdown, each demonstrating they know plenty about the other's background. Manuel eventually cools down, denying any involvement in Akeem's death, and even pretends to cooperate by giving Mark an address where gang members supposedly hang out. But the gesture is a trap. Once Mark leaves, Manuel quietly arranges with the North Gang to have him eliminated. Sensing the danger, Mark arms himself by reconnecting with an old ally, Tessian, who has been safeguarding his weapons and ammunition. Ready for battle, Mark heads to the gang's hideout. Inside, he questions the members about Akeem's death, but they mock and threaten him instead. A brutal fight breaks out, and Mark, highly skilled, incapacitates them one by one. Just when he gains the upper hand, Manuel's hired gunmen arrive on motorbikes and unleash heavy gunfire. Mark narrowly escapes, but his survival only intensifies Manuel's efforts to flush him out. Failing to kill him at the club, Manuel's men target Mark's family instead. They storm Yvonne's house, unleashing a hail of bullets, only to find it empty. Mark had already moved his mother to Aquila's dojo for safety. Meanwhile, Nate arrives at the aftermath of both attacks. First the bar, then Yvonne's house, and meets with Mark. Mark pleads with his old friend to stand with him for the sake of the island. After a moment's hesitation, Nate suggests that he should speak to Nora, the singer Manuel recently brought under his wing, believing she might know something about Akeem's final days. He discreetly provides her address. The next chapter begins as Mark sets out to meet Nora, who has been living under house arrest, silently carrying the weight of what she witnessed the night Akeem was murdered. Mark arrives at Nora's house, where she has been under strict house arrest by Manuel's men, both to control her and to keep her silent about what she witnessed. Nora is initially hesitant and fearful, but when Mark calmly explains that Akeem was his younger brother, she begins to open up. She admits that she saw Manuel kill Akeem in cold blood at the club, simply because of a small accident. Her voice trembles as she confesses that she has been terrified ever since, forced to sing for Manuel while watching him destroy lives around her. She agrees to help Mark, determined to bring Manuel down. Mark teams up with Nate and his small but loyal police force. They decide to raid one of Manuel's warehouses that is suspected to be a front for drug trafficking. During the raid, Mark and Nate uncover massive quantities of drugs and weapons, proving Manuel's deep involvement with the gangs. But before they can secure everything, Manuel's men arrive heavily armed, sparking a brutal firefight. Nate is injured in the battle but survives, and Mark barely escapes with enough evidence to keep moving forward at the same time. Mark reconnects with Aquila, who provides him with fighters from her dojo. Young men and women from the community, tired of living under Manuel's shadow, join Mark's cause. Together, they begin preparing for a final confrontation. Nora, finally finding her courage, also agrees to testify against Manuel if Mark can guarantee her protection. Manuel, however, refuses to give up his empire without a fight. Using his influence and wealth, he bribes corrupt officials and strengthens his alliance with the North Gang, effectively declaring war against Mark and anyone who stands with him. His men begin torching businesses, intimidating locals, and tightening their grip on the island, believing fear will silence any rebellion. But instead, Manuel's brutality ignites the people's anger. They begin to see Mark as the only one willing to fight for justice. The climax builds when Mark learns that Manuel is hosting a secret meeting with gang leaders at his heavily guarded club. Seeing this as his only chance to end Manuel's reign, Mark launches a daring assault with Nate, Aquila, Tessian, and their allies. The battle is explosive. Gunfire rattles through the club. Martial arts sequences showcase Aquila's dojo fighters taking down gang members, and Mark confronts wave after wave of Manuel's henchmen. Finally, Mark reaches Manuel in his private suite. The two face off in a brutal hand-to-hand fight. Manuel, though powerful and ruthless, is no match for Mark's skill, precision, and rage fueled by his brother's death. After a long, intense struggle, Mark defeats Manuel, leaving him alive just long enough to hear Nora bravely testify that she witnessed him kill Akeem. Enraged and cornered, Manuel makes one last attempt to shoot Mark, but Nate arrives just in time, fatally shooting Manuel before he can pull the trigger. With Manuel dead and his criminal empire dismantled, the gangs retreat, and the island finally begins to heal. Nora is freed from her forced servitude, and she chooses to stay on the island, using her music to inspire hope instead of fear. Aquila's dojo becomes a center for rebuilding the community, and Nate commits to restoring true law and order by in the closing scenes. Mark visits Akeem's grave with his mother, Yvonne, by his side. He promises his brother that justice has been served and that the island will no longer live in Manuel's shadow. Yvonne, though heartbroken by her loss, tells Mark she is proud of him for protecting their home. The film ends with Mark walking through the bustling island streets, finally at peace with his past and ready to rebuild his future where it all began. The end.